Which of the following are totally unrelated to fasting? Grumpiness, enemas, bad breath, or headaches? Hi, I'm Darren Wright from 12 Church with some practical fasting tips for you today. And we're talking about fasting from the context of Christian fasting, fasting and prayer. Some of these tips will be relevant regardless of the kind of fasting you're doing, but the focus here is about Christian, biblical fasting and prayer. Let's start with a bit of a quiz about fasting. The average person can go how long without food before they start starving? 7 days? 75 to 90 days? 17 minutes? 21 to 40 days? After about how many days of fasting, hunger will start to diminish? After 1 day? 3 days? 7 days? Or 15 days? Which of the following are totally unrelated to fasting? Grumpiness, bad breath, enemas, or headaches? Fasting is not a great way to lose weight over the long term, gain weight over the long term, free up time and energy for prayer, focus on spiritual issues. During an extended fast, it's important to drink lots of beer, Red Bull, water, maple syrup, milkshakes. Before and after a fast, it's important to make sure you're up to date on your giving, eat lightly, go to the nearest smorgasbord and stock up, let everyone know what you're up to. The average person can go without food for 21 to 40 days before starvation sets in. Hunger starts to diminish after about 3 days of fasting, depending how you began the fast. All of those items I mentioned, grumpiness, bad breath, enemas, and headaches, can be related to fasting, though not necessarily all of them all the time. Fasting is not a great way to lose weight over the long term in terms of just stopping eating and hoping that will cause you to lose weight. That can actually cause you to gain weight over the long term if it's done wrong. During an extended fast, it's important to drink lots of water, but often that water, it's helpful to have a pinch of salt, maybe a dribble of maple syrup, especially in an extended fast. And before and after fasting, it's very important to eat lightly before and after. And one basic principle is however long the fast was that you're in, that should take that many days to come back to normal levels of eating. Now, when we're talking about Christian fasting and prayer, we're talking about self-denial of some kind that creates space for you to seek God and for God to do some work in you and some work through you. It can free up time for intercession. Some of the key passages related to fasting, I encourage you to check these out if you want to dig in deeply. This is not a Bible study video, it's more of a practical tips video. But in the passage 2 Chronicles chapter 20, the story of Jehoshaphat, that's a very interesting passage about fasting and prayer. In the Old Testament, Isaiah 58 is a foundational passage for fasting and prayer. As we move into the New Testament, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 to 18, where Jesus basically instructs not to fast in such a way that you gain accolades for yourself. And then in Acts chapter 13 and Acts chapter 14, there are some snippets there about the practice of fasting in the early church that are quite instructive. You can go to those passages with just asking the question, what does this teach me about fasting? And you'll make some rich discoveries. Okay, let's jump into some practical tips about fasting beyond those things that showed up in the quiz. Number 1, why are you fasting? It's important to have a clear answer to this. Understand why you're fasting, because that will give you motivation. It will shape the way you use your time during the fast. You might be seeking direction, seeking empowering. You might be seeking a breakthrough in some area of your life, but understand why exactly it is you're fasting. Number 2, what is the nature of your fast? And by nature, I mean, what kind of fast is it? Is a food fast where you're just not eating any food? Or you're not eating any solid food? Or are you not eating certain kinds of food? Are you maybe, laying off coffee for a while? Or is it a fast from certain kinds of activities? Social media being a common one. I once did a fast from hunting because I was getting so obsessed with hunting, I had to break the obsession, and so I quit hunting for a while. For you, it might be some other leisure activity that just dominates your thinking and you need to break free. But understand why exactly you're fasting and what the nature of the fast is. What is the length of your fast? It's really helpful to decide this ahead of time. Otherwise, you'll start to waffle as the self-denial starts to kick in. You just start to feel the pain, whether it's a physical pain or an emotional pain from withdrawing from whatever thing it is you're fasting from. A simple way to start a basic food fast is to go from dinner to dinner. For instance, eat at 5:30 one evening, and then don't eat again till, say, 6 p.m. the next day. A 24-hour fast where you're effectively skipping 2 meals. That's a good start of fast when it comes to a food fast. I suppose this would be the place also where we could stick in some medical disclaimer that, you need to understand and maybe check with a doctor, etc., where you're at physically, if you're diabetic or some other factor, some other issue that relates to food consumption. Yeah, you need to do some thinking and research about how to do it properly and in a healthy way. Number 4, it's really important to stay hydrated. If you haven't fasted before, you may not realize how much fluid you take in when you take in your food, not just from drinking while you're eating, but just the moisture that's in the food. And simply by stopping eating, if you did everything else the same, even drank the same amount of water, whatever, as before, you will get dehydrated. So it's important to drink more than you normally would. I know first thing in the morning, whether I'm fasting or not, the very first thing I do in the morning is I drink 24 ounces of water, which gives my body a kickstart hydration-wise. And when I'm fasting, I make sure I do that a few times a day, in addition to other little sips along the way. So stay hydrated. That's one of the big reasons why people get headaches. They get dehydrated. And it's not the lack of food, it's actually the lack of water that leads to the physical discomfort. Eat lightly before and after your fast. One of the best ways we've found to go into a fast, my wife and I, is a 2-3-2 pattern, where for 2 days before the fast, you just eat fresh fruit and vegetables. And then you fast, and then coming out of it for 2 more days, just fresh fruit and vegetables. That really helps the process a lot. In fact, 2 days of fresh fruit and vegetables for a lot of us, that's kind of like fasting. And what I find is then my first day of my real fast, I'm already starting to get over the hump because I've been kind of hungry for 2 days, and the fast is much more effective for me. I'm not as hungry during that fast. And feathering out for a couple days keeps you from overeating as you exit a fast, and also helps restart your digestive system properly. Breath mints or some kind of gum to help with your breath. When you fast, you get bad breath. So make sure that you have some breath mints. You want, sugar-free stuff, calorie-free stuff. If you're interacting with people, pop in a mint or chew a piece of gum, and just make sure you don't, cause them to wither from this breath. I'm not sure all the reasons. It might be ketones or something else going on there, but typically when we're fasting, our breath is not the best. So you'll enjoy it more, and people around you will enjoy it more if you chew your gum. I think really that when you look at Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, where he talks about, put oil on your head and wash your face, self-care while fasting, I think that hygiene level is a part of it, because when you're fasting, your body starts to kind of, give off and excrete certain things which you want to deal with properly. Number 7, expect interference and temptation to break your fast. Now, there may be a spiritual side to that, and of course, sometimes there's a spiritual dynamic, spiritual resistance to you pressing in and seeking God. But the truth is, even beyond that direct spiritual attack, we live in an overindulgent, consumeristic culture. Self-denial is not a part of our culture. And so if you find yourself fasting, you're actually going against the flow, and the entire structure of your day and your week and the world you're in will fight against you denying yourself in any way. And so again, that just underscores why it's important and valuable for us to do this as followers of Jesus Christ. If you do a longer fast, you'll discover, and this is similar for most people, this is how it works for me, that day 1 and day 3 feel about the same. Day 2 is the hardest. And after day 4, the physical hunger starts to diminish, and the hunger you feel is more psychological hunger, because it's kind of time to eat, and you're bored and you feel like eating. And you quickly discover, once you get beyond the hunger stage, how food obsessed we are, how much food fills up our life. If you feather into the fast, again with fresh fruits and vegetables, that can actually help you get over the hump quicker. And day 1 might feel like that hard day 2. And then after that, it starts to diminish and you start feeling good. But after you fasted once or twice, you'll understand how your body operates. and what to expect as you go through it. I know when I first fasted for an extended period of time, day 2 was so hard. Man, I was ready to throw in the towel. But I'm so glad I didn't, because then day 3 was like, oh, this is like a couple days ago. And by day 4, it's like, I'm starting to feel good. Lots of time will be freed up if you're doing a food fast. Between the preparation of food, the actual eating, and the cleanup, when you do this 3 times a day, a lot of time is freed up. Even if you do meal prep quite quickly, you're still going to free up probably an hour to an hour and a half from not eating. What do you do with that time? Well, when you're fasting and prayer, you use that time for prayer. Use that time in Scripture. Use that time reflecting whatever the purpose of your fast is. Make sure that the time you free it from eating contributes to the purpose of that fast. A lot of times you might find yourself bored because of all the extra time. Well, push through and pursue the purpose for which you're fasting. You will need less sleep than usual on an extended fast. That's because your body isn't working as hard. And I know when I've done an extended fast that I really 6 hours of sleep kind of leaves me completely rested. Probably less now that I'm a little older. And again, so much time is freed up that you can then use that time to pursue the purpose of your fast. You will have greater clarity of thought and spiritual sensitivity. I think that is in part for physical reasons. Your body's not working as hard. There's more energy for your thinking. But again, if you are fasting in the Christian prayer and fasting sense, you are pursuing God. And when we draw near to God, He draws near to us. And I found that when I'm fasting, I can go from just, regular activity to prayer in a flash. The instant I start praying, it's like boom, right into it. It's a powerful, beautiful thing. So expect that and look forward to that. And this will help motivate you to maybe do more fasting in the future. Finally, number 12, it will take a few days for your digestive system to get back to normal. Again, this is helped with the 2 days fruits and vegetables before and after for that 7-day pattern that I talked about. And you just need to understand, if you're traveling right after a fast, just understand your digestive system is not going to be regular, and you need to be free to run to the bathroom at different times. Again, everybody's body is different. What you eat will make a difference. And so again, it takes some time, some practice to understand how that will affect your body. Hopefully some of these tips will help you do better as you move into fasting and make it more beneficial, less painful, more productive overall. If you look into Isaiah 58, it describes what will happen as God's people there fast. And it says things like, you'll loosen the bonds of wickedness and undo the bands of the yoke, and let the oppressed go free, and break every yoke, and cause your light to break out like the dawn. And on it goes. I encourage you to read Isaiah 58. But when I read that in Isaiah 58, it sounds a lot like the words of Jesus in Luke 4, where he's quoting Isaiah 61, describing his ministry. And this is what Jesus says. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because He's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." I find it interesting that the description of what happens when we fast and the description of Jesus' ministry from Jesus himself sounds a lot the same, which kind of gives us a clue that as we fast and pray, as we press in and seek God and seek His direction and empowering and His help, we are beginning to join Jesus more fully on His mission. Fasting and prayer is a strategic way, a critical way of joining Jesus on His mission. As you seek God in fasting and prayer, may He break through for you and in you and through you in the way you most desperately need. God bless. Press on.